Hey guys, I've got to take a little bit of time off to deal with some important things on the home front. And our team here at Pelican Plus is posting my greatest hits, let's call them, of some older videos that I've done, which may be new to you if you haven't seen them before. For those of you who are watching this on Substack and you are a paid subscriber, make sure that you click down underneath for the post explaining how to migrate over to Pelican Plus. And if you're someone who's never subscribed before, now's as good a time as any. There's a link down there for you as well. All right, enjoy the show. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. I just had the pleasure of sitting down with Charles Fraune. He's the author of Rise of the Occult, as well as Slaying Dragons. And he was on my show a few months ago talking about his book, Rise of the Occult, which we do talk about today in light of the fast approaching Halloween holiday. Now, maybe you're a fan of Halloween, maybe you're not. Maybe you think it's a pagan demonic disaster. Maybe you think it's a good old Catholic holiday that we have to recapture. Maybe you haven't really thought about it too much, and there's certain things you should probably be aware of. Whatever your opinion is on Halloween, I think you're going to find a lot of good information in this show that's going to help you understand the history of this holiday better and how, as Catholics, we can embrace Halloween in the way that it's meant to be embraced traditionally as Catholics, even if our customs do differ. Before we get to it, I'd like to say thank you to our sponsors, Orchard and Lily Studios, who sponsored this show. You know, there's just something about drinking coffee out of a St. Michael mug. You can see there. It just tastes better. And if you're wondering where you can get yours, you can check out Orchard and Lily Studio. The link for that is in the description to this video. And actually, they sent me this t-shirt. It says, "Come, let us adore him." Pretty good, considering the holiday season is not far away. Orchard and Lily Studio is a mother-daughter operation. It is a 100% Canadian store. They offer some really unique designs. Their products include tote bags, men's and women's t-shirts, sweatshirts, mugs, and even phone cases, making their products perfect for yourself or a Christmas gift or a loved one. If you like the mug or the t-shirt that I'm showing you today, check out their website at orchardandlilystudio.ca. I've butchered the name by not saying it properly, so just click the link in the description. It's orchardandlilystudio.ca. Click that link in the description to get yours. And you can have everything from men's apparel, t-shirts. This is actually a picture of me in high school. Haha, kidding. Women's apparel. I know women, especially my wife, they love these nice snuggly t-shirts. The prices are great. And best of all, you're supporting a truly small business, Catholic-inspired operation. So thank you to Orchard and Lily Studio for sponsoring this video. Check out the links in the description. And I know there's lots of people out there who watch my show in Canada, and you've been wondering, where can I support some Canadian stores? This is an option. Also, you can still shop there from the United States, and it's very simple. So thank you to Orchard and Lily Studio. Check the link in the description to the video and enjoy the show. Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We are approaching the mythical, infamous, legendary, polarizing Feast of All Hallows Eve, also known as Halloween. Jack-o'-lanterns, trick-or-treating, most importantly, praying for souls, and for that little triduum there of the All Souls and All Saints time of the year. And we've got with us an expert in all things occult and demonology and all these sorts of spooky topics, which seems appropriate for Halloween. We've got our friend Charles Fraune. Charles, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks again, Kennedy. It's good to be back.
Excellent. And Charles is the author of Rise of the Occult, Slaying Dragons 2, just recently endorsed by, you said, Monsignor Rossetti. We have Bishop Schneider. We've got Bishop Strickland. That's pretty good. What else is there on there? Who else is endorsing it?
Father Calloway. And yeah.
That's pretty good.
A couple more in the wings. Yeah.
Big hitters. You know, Charles, it was hard for me to get a lot of people to endorse my SSPX book. I don't know why. Anyway, but don't worry, we'll leave that. So this book is, I did get some, but this book is in the link. The link for this book is in the description to our video. So what we're thinking of doing here, Charles, is Halloween is coming up, and obviously we know that Halloween, All Hallows Eve, we know this is Catholic in its history. But there is a lot of hubbub around this idea of how Halloween is celebrated today. So, and a lot of Catholics are polarized. You know, some embrace it whole hog. I mean, there's no problem. They don't think there's any problem with candy and trick-or-treating and dressing up in costumes. Okay, fine. And then some are kind of like, I think influenced by, I don't want to say it's only Protestants, because there have been some Catholic priests in the past who have had strong condemnations of it in their individual writings. I've seen those. It's not just Protestants, but largely this sort of like, almost Puritan inspired, this sort of secularized holiday is just an abomination. And then there's kind of a lot of people in the middle. So before we get into all that, why don't you just give us a background on Halloween and maybe how we're at this point where now it seems to be this hotbed for occult sensibilities.
Yeah, so good opening there because there are so many topics and they're all working together, and we need to know so much about the background, about what's happening now, the background just 100 years ago, and the background 1600 years ago, I guess 1400 years ago. So All Saints is an ancient feast. It goes back to the 7th century. See if I can remember all my dates. I won't get too specific, but around the 7th century, I think the first thing was the dedication of the Pantheon, which was dedicated to all the gods, all the demons. This is a very important origin point, and I think the Holy Spirit is behind this. And like All Saints is a very important festival, and the fight with the occult is very significant, especially for our times, but also just what it means to be Christian, because it goes back to the beginning. They dedicated the Pantheon as a church. And that was May 13th. And again, that's significant. Our Lady of Fatima, May 13th. I mean, a lot of people gloss over that, but that's right there. And then I think the next century, so 7th or 8th century, another pope dedicated a chapel to All Saints in St. Peter's. And then the next pope, not the next pope, but the next century, about the 9th century, I think it was, they made that feast. They moved the feast, the century before, they moved the feast from May 13th to November 1st. And then the next time they touched it, they extended it to the whole church as a universal feast. I think that was the 9th century. And here's where you get some of the modern paganism, modern pagan movements who are terrible with their history. So in the Rise of the Occult, and then I have a subsequent book coming out soon, I talk about the origin of Wicca and stuff, and it's modern. This is a modern thing, and they claim it to be historical, but they don't know anything about the Druids. No one really has good records about these ancient pagans, so we can't really give them any credit when they try to connect Halloween to Druidism. But so there's one claim that the church moved it to November 1st to counter Samhain, or Samhain, how you pronounce it, one of the 8 Wiccan Sabbats, festivals, feast days, whatever you want to call it. So an ancient Druid thing. But it was a very practical move. The actual history is they moved it November 1st because all these pilgrims were flocking to Rome for this great feast of All Saints, and they put it at the end of harvest time, which is what Samhain is actually, or Samhain is celebrating, the end of harvest time. So the move was not to trump paganism. So that's where it came from, where the feast came from. And then you have, the modern celebration of Halloween is, I guess, I don't know if it's dominated. Since you live in Canada, you have a unique perspective on this, but it feels like it's dominated in a negative way by what's happening in America, in the United States specifically. Because I read one article about Poland is trying to purge the negative American influence over Halloween and go back to some of the traditions where it's actually Catholic in what we do. But then you have, and we can come back to a lot of these things, because you have, in my research, what I picked up on, it seems like about 100 years ago, early 1900s, is when a lot of the creepy stuff started to really take over, like Witches' Night, Devil's Night, pranks, and evil costumes. A lot of the creepy factor, and it may have already been there, because we're a fallen nature. We can't pretend that there was some kind of idealism operating for a millennia, and we were never inclined towards the superstitious, because as I talk in my book, in The Rise of the Occult, like the church has struggled with superstition for 2,000 years. It's just man's problem. So in the last 100 years, you have this emergence of commercialism, Hollywood, and modern pagan movements, Wicca, Satanism. It's all modern. It's all coming about in the early 1900s, mid 1900s. So then they're trying to resurrect all these ancient pagan religions and try to pull all these pieces of like ancient Druid beliefs and connect them to Samhain with like the wandering souls, appeasing these spirits, summoning spirits. So you get this curiosity that Hollywood capitalizes on with these horror movies. So this whole movement is kind of developing. Then you have secularism among Christians sneaking in there, especially post-Vatican II, to where we drop, our devotion to the sacraments, our devotion to the saints, our devotion to the sacramentals. So the liturgical calendar is kind of destroyed. and Christians are really losing their identity. And then all the while, the world's becoming more secular and more occult. And then Halloween seems to be the target of all of this, the central point where it's all colliding every year. And every year we're trying to figure out, if we send our kids out trick-or-treating, are they actually dancing with the devil in the streets? And they don't even realize it. And there's a little bit of truth. There's a lot of corruption. There's a lot of evil influence. But that's how long story made really short, how we get to the point now of why these conversations are really important, because Christians are kind of trapped in the middle of this big storm of Catholicism and the occult.
Okay, that's perfect. That's a really great overview. Thank you for that. I'm going to bring up a couple points I wrote down here. Got my trusty dollar store journalism pad here. And
Right.
so the first thing, you mentioned creepy. So there is a distinction, and actually, you know what? I'll pull up, because you have two good articles, 1 Peter 5 from a couple of years ago for Halloween, but they're evergreen because of the season. So I'll just get my right hotkey here. Boom. Okay, perfect. See that? There's production value. And this is called Halloween versus the World. And you have right here at the top of it, you talk about death brings life. And you show, for example, a skeleton can be used by a Catholic to show he does not fear death, or by the fallen world to show he does not respect life. So you mentioned how Halloween has become creepy, but in Catholicism, we do have an aspect which is as traditional as anything. We might call it the macabre. So, we have, thank you to my friend Mr. Al Smith, he's probably watching this, I have a first-class relic of St. Anne on our mantle. It is a little piece of her bone. It's a wonderful gift that we have in our household, and I'm very blessed to have it. But it's a piece of bone. It's a little piece of, it's the bone of the Mother of Mary. I mean, this is very macabre, but we understand it in the right context. We understand the body is good. God created the body. Corruption comes through sin, but there's an aspect of holiness, of the sanctification of the saints, and so on and so forth, and the whole sacramental thing. We get that. We also understand that, we can say things like memento mori, remember your death. We're not saying fixate on death as an end to all things. We're saying remember that this world is not your home, so you must live a good life. You must live with the sacraments in a state of grace and all these kinds of things. There's the bone church, the famous bone church in Italy, where there's literally the bones of former religious that are sort of the decorations, and the way things are made. Christ is on a cross. He's dead, and he's on the cross, and we kneel in front of this. So that it's a day that focuses on death is not the problem. The problem comes when the world loses its religiosity, and then the death becomes void of any religious significance. Perhaps you can speak to the problem with that.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that's on the minds of a lot of people right now is like, I wish someone had been tracking for the last 40 or 50 years what neighborhood Halloween decorations look like and how they've changed year to year to year to year. I don't remember as a kid. I liked the secular Halloween. I liked the dark Halloween. I was kind of a fallen kid, a nominal Catholic. But I don't remember such gore in the front yard displays in the neighborhoods, such as we see now. Like, we see dismembered people. There's a famous one, I don't know what state it is, where that Catholics are protesting because it's so satanic and so sacrilegious. But like dismemberment, like bloody depictions of violence, like slasher movies on your front lawn, like this. What does this have to do? That's the death with no life, death with no dignity. This butchering, this dehumanization. And that's what the occult does. It's very dehumanizing. And one good example is the Day of the Dead. The Day of the Dead is very Dia de los Muertos in Mexico. It's kind of a pre-Christian thing. It's also a Christian thing. It has its own superstitions and its own great qualities. But one of the things that's happening in Mexico, which I'm going to be writing kind of a little booklet about, is the emergence of Santa Muerte. And Santa Muerte is this despicable, disgusting, really creepy, really powerful demon that lots and lots of Catholics are worshiping, and it has no historical origin, and they know it. It's a folk saint. But the point here is that it looks like it is a skeleton. It's the Grim Reaperess, and it's also a mockery of Our Lady. There's also something that's come out now in the last couple of years from that area is the Guada Muerte. It's a complete fusion of Our Lady of Guadalupe with Santa Muerte. And Santa Muerte is an amoral miracle worker. She'll accept anybody, will not call you to holiness. But it's all about death. It's this perversion of death, because they have skull face painting is one of the traditions with the Day of the Dead, and that is to make people aware of their mortality, which is very much like what we're talking about. I think you alluded to the dance of death from ancient Europe, from old Christendom, where people embraced the idea of death and meditated on it. That's one of the big things about Hallowtide, is a meditation on death, the consequence, judgment, purgatory, heaven, and hell. But when you pervert that, like we're seeing with Santa Muerte, then that's the diabolical. And that's one of the things when I was reflecting ahead of this podcast here, is like all the inversions. The occultism makes a mockery of the faith. And Halloween is a great example, because at Halloween we have all the saints, we have all the souls in purgatory, the whole purpose of humanity, the purpose of our life, the purpose of Christ's redemption, the purpose of death is celebrated here with Hallowtide. But then the cultural secular version is completely stripping out the life-giving value of death and just focusing on the creepy for creepy's sake, and for no salvific reason.
I'm thinking as you're saying that. So, horror movies, I have two minds about them. I don't watch that many movies. I can't stay awake, to be honest, because by the time it's 10 at night, my kids are down, and I'm just like, oh, sweetie, we'll watch a movie. Exactly. I'm sleeping, But some of them, if we're being objective, some of the most excellent films, as far as the storytelling, the cinematography, the acting, the ambiance, all these things, some of the most excellent films have been sort of spookier films. Because we do know that some of the greatest stories are the ghost stories. I mean, the Charles Dickens, Night Before Christmas, this is a ghost story, and ghost stories were very common at Christmas time. In that one Christmas Carol, it talks about ghost stories, and it's why would you talk about ghost stories? Because that was the way that it was. But in those films, when the horror movie films were actually good pieces of art, if we can say it like that, when they actually had a very strong Catholic theme. The most famous is obviously The Exorcist. Mm-hmm. But if you look in good, real high-quality films that deal with the macabre, there's always a priest. There's always a clear delineation between good and evil. Okay? And there's something just in that. Whereas, I haven't seen one of these movies in a long time, but as our culture has become less and less religious, horror movies are still around, but they're just basically occasions of despair. It's impossible for there to be a moral victory in those films, because the demonic is almost just senseless. It's just it's not there in relation to the good. It's there just to bring suffering, and there's no way out, and they're basically nihilistic films. And this is what we see in our culture today, where, I think it was it Chesterton was one of them, and he says, the state of fallen man is not atheism, like many would have you believe. The state of fallen man is paganism. The ancients, before they were Christians, none of them were atheists. No one, atheism is. I love how atheists love evolution, and I always say to you, well, evolution's dumb, but if it was true, why the heck did everybody evolve to be religious? Like you, the atheist, must be the blip on the evolutionary radar. You're the mistake. Like no one is an atheist historically. But our culture is diving back into paganism, full throttle. So naturally, we see in people this desire to meditate on death, but they don't have any way to conceive of it. So it's funny, you walk by one of those houses with these crazy, over-the-top Halloween displays, and you go, ironically, that person is probably closer to a conversion, hypothetically, than the smart atheist philosophy professor, because that person is at least willing to commit that there is some, there's something beyond the veil. There's something where they can feel it, they can touch it, and they go, the line between death and life is a little more gray than people would have you believe. So maybe let's move on here, because there's another part in your article that I think is relevant, and it's about Halloween. Oh, there, good. Halloween being used by Satanists and witches. So it is a Catholic holiday historically, but it is being used by Satanists and witches. How is it being used by Satanists and witches in our day?
Yeah, and tagging it, connecting what you were just talking about with this next one, which we can kind of come full circle on, is Halloween now is a great opportunity. And right now it's a missed opportunity, which some exorcists have pointed out. It's a missed opportunity because the people who embrace the macabre without the despair form, because they don't have the full version of Christianity, they're ready. They're ready for the church to swoop in there and just say, "Hey, here's the full story." And as in one of the articles that we're going to pull up, I talk about the readings from the Vigil of All Saints and the readings for Christ the King, which we can come back to, because Christ the King is always right before All Saints. And the readings are triumphant, and it's also evangelical triumphalism. Like the world needs to know what God has done for us. It talks about the power that Christ wants to pour on the earth, how those who follow him will reign on the earth. And of course, this goes against Satanism that wants to reign on the earth, and Satan himself. So there's this great opportunity in the church's liturgical prayers and readings that Halloween is a time to evangelize the world. So once we really kind of appreciate this, I think we'll find the inspiration as to how to counter the occult. So coming back to the new one, which you just mentioned, because the occult is very much triggered, might be a great word, around Halloween. Like leading up to Halloween, there's all this occultic activity happening. One interesting point for you and your audience, and you may have already heard this before, but have you ever heard of something called Ouija-zilla?
No, I
It's
haven't.
the world's largest Ouija board, and it's in Salem, Massachusetts. It was built in 2019, and it took away the world record from a hotel in Pennsylvania, Windber, Pennsylvania. On top of it, there's a hotel. A hotel on the roof is the world's second largest Ouija board, and then it was trumped, as you see there, by Ouija-zilla. So apparently, you can park like 3 or 4 18-wheelers on top of it. But the reason I brought it up is because they dedicated this thing, and that hotel dedicated theirs right before Halloween. So a couple weeks before, and then a couple days before, depending on which one you're looking at. But yeah, you see the little thing that you move around there. I've done some more research on Ouija-zilla, and I haven't figured out how popular it actually is. But so there's some occult. Ouija board has nothing in itself to do with Halloween, but you could see people gravitate to it for Halloween because of this occultic mindset. But if you look at modern Satanists, so some occult groups will call it Samhain or Samhain. Others will just call it Halloween. So they'll steal the name that has All Saints Eve, All Hallows Eve in it, which is our terms. They steal our term and really pervert it. But for the Satanists, it's a day of indulgence. They say a time. Let's see, where did I clipped it over here. It's a holiday to celebrate indulgence and embrace the darkness and its aesthetic. So they love the macabre for the despair, for the indulgence, for the we live for this world only. We are beasts. Let's celebrate, our depravity really and indulge in everything. Then you have the Wiccans who believe in this supposed ancient Druid concept, which may or may not be completely made up by Gerald Gardner in the 60s, inspired by Aleister Crowley, that spirits roam the earth, the veil is thin or the veil is pulled back between this world and the other realm, and all these spirits show up and your ancestors, and you can talk to them, you can leave out food, they come and eat it, they can come visit you. But also, as Wiccans will say, from some of the people I interviewed for my book, For the Rise of the Occult, they say that not all these ghosts that show up are friendly. And they will use, for example, mirrors. There's one story, I think it was Adelaide, from my book, where she and some of her Wiccan friends covered all the mirrors in their house on Halloween because they believed spirits would enter their home through the mirrors, and they wanted to interact with these ghosts on their own terms, which is funny. They try to make rules. A lot of witches do this. They make their own rules. But nonetheless, these spirits did come around, she said, one Halloween, and were very evil. She sensed the evil of them, and this is one of the things that helped prompt her conversion later. She said it wasn't Aunt Sue coming around to visit; it was some darker force that was emerging, and it's not something that we need to worry about. But this is a superstition, and when you embrace superstition, then the devil can mess with you. He can mess with you through fear, and also if you're opening these doors, he's going to come in and torment you. So Satanism, Wicca, witchcraft, pretty much all forms of the occult, because the New Age will embrace it too. I don't know specific details about Halloween and the New Age, but they embrace everything and anything. So anything the Satanists are doing, the New Agers are going to embrace just because. But you have, and one thing on back to Santa Muerte, the one of the best researchers right now is Andrew Chestnut, and he's warning that, or not warning, he's not Catholic as far as I know. He's advising that Santa Muerte may get a formal feast day, because this cult he says it's the fastest growing new religious movement in the Americas, has 12 million followers, and it's kind of global now, but they're in the United States, all over the place, in Mexico. It's the spreading cult. So people need to be aware of Santa Muerte. He said the feast day may end up being November 1st or 2nd for this demon, because of its connection with the Day of the Dead. So that's something that needs be on the radar too, is the occult is gravitating to Halloween. So we really need to be aware of that and be ready to counter it and meet them, to convert them as members of the church.
Okay, would that be a feast day, like he means like national holidays?
Well, it's pretty widespread in Mexico, so I wonder if it would qualify. Well, it probably wouldn't, because the church absolutely condemns Santa Muerte in Mexico, like weekly. Even the government doesn't like it. They've destroyed shrines repeatedly. So I don't think it'll ever be a national feast day for this demon, but a cultural feast day, definitely.
So, okay, this is fascinating. So I think I'm thinking about the sort of demonic symmetry here. So we have when we say heavenly symmetry, we see in God's creation and the seasons, in the spiritual world, these things converge. This is heavenly symmetry. So, for example, Ember Days. Okay, so we have our Ember Days at various times in the year, basically with the changes of seasons, and that makes perfect sense. Okay, we're going from one season to the other in the world, and we're going from one season and the other in the spiritual life. And we have times of fasting and penance and feasting that all bring these things. It gives us this connection between the spiritual and the corporeal, and showing us that there is a symmetry between heaven and earth, and that's wonderful. On the other side, though, we see this sort of demonic symmetry. So I'm seeing this right now with what you're saying about Santa Muerte and these, occult things trying to attach themselves to Halloween, All Souls Day, All Saints Day. And that makes perfect sense because when we celebrate All Souls, when we celebrate All Saints, for All Saints, I mean, it's all the saints, all souls as the souls in purgatory. We are keeping the traditional understanding of death at the forefront of our mind, and we honor those who have gone before us who are in heaven, and we pray for those who need our prayers, who are in purgatory. And then, of course, we have the indulgences and things like that. We visit cemeteries and so on and so forth. So it seems to me like basically the occultists are just sort of picking up the slack. Catholics have abandoned these things, but there's something like an ancestral memory that is so strong within our cultures that we know around this time of year, especially in the Northern Hemisphere when the actual seasons change and things actually start to die. We know in our ancestral memories, if you want to call them that around this time of year we think of death. So it's a perfect marketing opportunity for the Satanists, if you want to put it that way. So maybe we should touch on here, because you mentioned and I mentioned as well that really these people that are playing between the two realms, they do have a religious sense and they're not atheists. Maybe you can tell us about, in your book, again, Rise of the Occult, it is in the description box for this video, how some of these people that you interviewed went from being in these sort of almost Santa Muerte, or maybe even really in Santa Muerte type situations, and for lack of a better term, they were spooked out of those scenarios and into the truth.
Yeah. So that is one of the reasons why some of these people converted was that the devil played his hand a little bit too heavy, or showed his hand a little too clearly, and they realized what they'd gotten into. But touching on one thing you just said is a lot of people went into it because of this unmet need for mysticism. So this religious memory has been depleted, and we've forgotten what we're all about. And so we're not raising our kids, and we're not raising ourselves. If we don't try to find this information, we're not raising ourselves as good Christians. So we're depleted. We're yearning for something, and the world is supplying the answer. So people go after the occult because it's showing, like, look, we have sensational things, like with Santa Muerte, for example. It's this deity, this demon is known as a miracle worker, and people want to see the spiritual realm manifest in front of them. And that's one of the reasons, like, that people go into the occult. Like Andrew that I interviewed, he said he went into the occult because he wanted proof that God and the devil and demons and angels, the whole spiritual world, was real. He wanted proof, and he got it. He said, but that's like looking for proof for death by playing with a loaded gun, like Russian roulette. Like, this is going to backfire and it's going to hurt you. But one, I think it was, what was her name? The pseudonym I gave her, I think it was Therese. She was doing something, I think, like Paulo, I can't remember how they are. They're all these different occult things, but Paulo, or some one of the South American occultic things, similar to Santeria. But she was supposed to receive a demon, a spirit, to ride her, to possess her, to fill her, and then give her all these answers, all this power and whatnot. But she was baptized when she was young as a Protestant. She desired it earlier. Like, she had this spiritual interest that kind of like mesmerized her parents and the pastor guy. So they baptized her early, and she credits that early interest in Christianity as saving her, protecting her from this demonic oppression that she had welcomed. Because when this thing tried to come down on her, she felt this kind of instinctive resistance, and she said no to it. She said she refused to let this demon ride her. And she said this was after she had paid thousands of dollars for the ritual, and had fasted for weeks, had done all of the spiritual work. And then when the moment came, she was so afraid of it that she ran away, essentially. And then that was the beginning, one of the many steps. The second time was when she summoned a demon into her house. And when she did the ritual, the whole house began to creak as if some big weight had just sat down upon it. And then she knew instinctively, again, at that moment, she had done something very dangerous and very bad. I think that was the last straw from her. Like, the spooky factor was going sky high, and she got out of the occult. But a lot of people, when they dabble like that, that I interviewed, a lot of them, like, the demons started to show up. They started to demand things. They started to get mean, abusive. They started to attack. And that's when they realized, okay, I'm into something I didn't plan on being in, and I need to get out. And that's one of the reasons why I think my book is so valuable, especially around Halloween, like, because it didn't take much. This is a warning from The Exorcist too, as well as the former occultist. It doesn't take much. You play with the Ouija board once, you may not notice anything, but you could be haunted or hunted as a result by some demon, and things may go odd for you for a while. You might not get possessed, but they're going to mess with you. They're going to remember it, and it could open a door that the demons take advantage of. So there's no safe meddling with the occult. And one exorcist I talked to, he said he's now seeing at Halloween, there's a new trend of adults. Like, Halloween is becoming more adult themed, a bigger thing for adults to do, where they feel like this is like going to Vegas. What happens on Halloween stays on Halloween. Like, there's some safety net they have. They can sin, they can go meet witches, they can do nefarious things and summon demons and get away with it, and then go back to their day on November 2nd or November 1st, whatever it is. But then they have all these spiritual problems, and exorcists have to clean up their mess for them. So people need to be aware that there's no safe dabbling.
Okay. What are some things that people should avoid that are part of the? Because I know people get super emotional about Halloween. It's funny, both in the traditional Catholic world and in the non-traditional Catholic. In the traditional Catholic, it's more like, this is a super secularized thing, and it's nothing like the traditional Halloween, so have nothing to do with it because it's either non-religious or modernist. But in the Novus Ordo world, because there's so much Protestant influence, I've seen a lot of people reject Halloween because, literally, I remember one person, this is a big Catholic family, but they just, growing up, Halloween, they would just go in the basement and watch a movie because parents heard some Protestant preacher talk about something, and there's blurred lines between the Protestantism and the Novus Ordo, or whatever. So that's just, it happens all the time. So there's kind of like two sides where people get real upset on the Novus Ordo side because it's like, you're dabbling in the thing that this preacher said was wrong. And it's like, well, I don't care what that preacher said. On the other side, it's, this is just a modern abomination of a good Catholic thing, so I have nothing to do with it. I think the truth's somewhere in the middle. I'm not going to say whether or not you should go trick-or-treating. I'm not going to say whether or not you should only wear costumes that are religious. Obviously, we should avoid occasions of grave sin like, drunkenness and all those kinds of things. That's just good common sense for a Catholic. But what are some of the things that are common around this time of year that people might not be, hip to, but they should avoid them?
Yeah, so things that people haven't thought of that are actually going to be evil, but
yeah, like occasions for occult interaction.
Yeah, even the issue of like visiting a haunted house. That seems to be, some people think, like someone asked me who's a practicing Catholic, is it okay to go on ghost walks? And I should have asked clarification. So like a ghost walk could be a historical thing. You're just going through a historical downtown. But one of the issues that I warned this person about was a ghost walk implies you're curious. So a lot of haunted houses now are just like scare factories. Like, why would you do that to yourself? For one reason, like going in, having somebody chase you with a chainsaw and a bloody mask, for entertainment, that could just mess with you. There might not be a demon there, but you're going to have some kind of you're going to have nightmares for a while. Why would you do that? But one of the things that's implied there is a curiosity. So, and that's a superstition. We have to, there's a lot of superstitions that have crept in, like the whole, the veil is thin. A lot of Catholics are like, well, do we believe that or not? Are spirits roaming the earth or not? Well, no, the veil doesn't get thinner. If the veil gets thinner, it's only between us and heaven and purgatory because of the communication of graces and prayers. Like that might get thinner, but not so they can walk the earth and spook us or terrorize us. So a lot of people give in to fear at Halloween because of supposed nefarious, diabolical activities that might be going on. And that's a superstition. That's a lack of rational thought and a lack of trust in God. So if you hide in the basement because some Protestant guy, spooked you, because you're actually afraid of something going on in the culture, well, you don't have faith in God. So these are some subtle things people need to avoid. Some of the overt ones, of course, are the Ouija boards, trying to go to actual haunted houses to see ghosts. Most of the time, a ghost in a haunted house is actually a demon. And again, back to the curiosity thing, whatever it is, even if there's nothing there, your curiosity is going to cause you to possibly, seek a spiritual encounter with a spirit. But one thing that a lot of people might not have on their radar, which I learned, which is going to be my next book that's coming out, as kind of basically a sequel, not exactly, but maybe a follow-up to Rise of the Occult, is these ghost hunting apps. Ghost hunting is a very popular thing right now. And I learned from former occultists and exorcists in my interviews about these ghost hunting apps. And I did a lot of research on them, and they're very, very popular. There are like hundreds of different kinds that you can download on your phone. The idea is it's working with some kind of electromagnetic field to detect presences in your home, but people are using them to summon demons. It's basically a Ouija board, and people are getting real results. In the reviews, you could read that these things are actually working. And the former occultist that I talked to that actually used it, he said, yeah, he got responses, and it was really creepy. So, and that's the curiosity. Why would you do that? Well, two reasons you do that is because you're curious, which is a problem, and you have quick access via the phones. This is one of the dangers of modern technology. Like, you can look up anything, any spell, any witchcraft belief. You can join a coven. You can talk to spirits just through your phone, through your computer. And so that's something that people don't realize often, especially with their kids. Most kids have these phones, and my kids don't have phones. They're not old enough for one reason, but they're not going to, as far as I can help it. But parents should check their kids' phones. Ask them if they have a ghost hunting app. I'd be curious what the statistics are on that.
Ghost hunting through phones. Wow. I was thinking it would be more like, what's that, like geocaching, where people, say locations. Maybe there's something like that too, where, I was here and I'm going to ping my location and there's demons or ghosts here or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that I never thought of the haunted house one, because We do believe in the ghostly as part of Catholic tradition. There can be
Hmm.
purgatorial promptings and things like that, and that's total big saints and stuff. We'll talk about that. There's no issue there. So you know, a lot of Catholics will talk about how you know you can tell there is something sketchy or strange going on in a certain location, and you're pretty sure it's preternatural. But it's another thing to go and seek those things out. And I never thought
Hmm.
of that. I don't go through haunted houses and stuff for Halloween, but yeah, that would be a very dangerous thing. Even if you think, oh, I'm going to go pray for souls or something like that, it's still the curiosity part of it. It's still, the curiosity, even, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Even if your intentions are good, curiosity kills the cat. That's important. Okay, so we've got about 5 minutes left here, 5, 6 minutes. So we know that Halloween has been co-opted by the occultists and all that sort of stuff. And again, if you don't want to get demons, check out Charles' book. Demons are bad. Don't get demons, and he gives you all the advice you need. You can check out his book in the description box for this video. But Halloween is a Catholic holiday. I'm not going to stop celebrating Christmas just because of the Coca-Cola Santa. In fact, I'm not going to stop talking about things like Father Christmas and Santa just because of the Coca-Cola Santa, because I'm okay with traditional Christian folk traditions as long as I'm still a Christian. I'm not going to stop celebrating Easter because of Cadbury eggs. In the same way, I'm not going to stop celebrating Halloween as a Catholic because it's ours. I'm not giving it up because a bunch of wackos who watch too much, horror movies or play with Ouija boards want to rain on my parade. So being a Catholic, what's a good way? What's a positive, good, healthy, fun way to engage in the Halloween festivities as a Catholic?
Yeah, and I would say we need to, like you were saying, we need to rethink it. We need to step back from what the culture has done to Halloween, what the culture supposes, originated, and all that. Just kind of, when we're going to have a resurgence of Christendom, that's going to take a lot of work on the generation that's supposed to pick up the pieces and rebuild the walls and rebuild the castles and the great cathedrals. So, and sometimes it's going to look a little different. It's going to be flavored by the culture that rebuilt it, and that's by God's design. Just like God raises up particular saints with particular personalities at certain times in the life of the church. So, be creative, but always be anchored. I think the key is we have to be anchored on what is the purpose of this feast. It's all saints. Look at the readings in one of the articles from 1 Peter 5 that I have up there about let the servants of hell take note tomorrow, I think is what I called it, where I examine the readings from All Saints, the Vigil, and Christ the King. We have to remember that Christ the King was intentionally placed right before Halloween in the early 1900s by Pope Pius XI, I think it was, uh, to make us focus on judgment before we focus on the glory of the saints like that. So judgment, death, judgment, heaven and hell, then the saints in glory, where we can be if we strive and persevere. The souls in purgatory who need our help, this communion of the saints, the sharing of graces and riches. So that's the point of the feast. If we keep that in mind, dress up like saints. That's a given. One of the problems is, I don't know how it is where you live, but down here, everybody's scattered. We don't have Catholic communities. We don't have Catholic neighborhoods. So you can't do a Catholic block party very easily. You can't do trick-or-treating and you're going to Catholic homes and everybody can dress up like saints, or you can do soul cakes. But if you can figure out where these neighbors are, or even make friends with your local neighbors, maybe they're open to it. But in soul cakes, you exchange little cakes on All Souls Day. It's not just Halloween. It's not just the 31st. It's the 1st and the 2nd as well. Make these soul cakes. We've done it before. We go to a cemetery. We meet Catholic families at the cemetery, a Catholic cemetery. We exchange soul cakes with names of departed souls of people who've died from our family attached to each cake. And before you can eat the cake, you have to pray for that soul. And then we're in the cemetery, so we pray for the souls there. So that's a good one on November 2nd. But I had the thought, just yesterday, like, why not put lights on your home? Like we're celebrating the saints in glory, these luminous beings. Why not decorate your home with lights like people do at Christmas? Why can't we duplicate that? Everybody loves the lights. It's a festival of light, All Saints, and dressing up like saints. Make up your own customs. When it comes to, like bobbing for apples and pumpkins, like if there's nothing intrinsically wrong or superstitious with one of these customs that's come down, we'll do it. You're not coordinating, you're not communicating with a demon just because someone said it has a strange origin.
That's interesting. I wrote something down earlier. We didn't get to it because we talked about other things, but seasonal festivals and local folk customs have always been integrated into the life of Catholics, even if they themselves aren't particularly Catholic. So Christmas trees, okay? There's a massive religious significance to Christmas trees, but they're I mean, whether or not it was widespread in paganism or not around that time of year is not the point. The point is that pagans would use candles and trees and all these kinds of things. Obviously, they have, I'm reading through some of the Iliad right now. There's a theological folk philosophical custom within these pagan cultures, and there's certain parts of it that are totally fine because they're human beings. And St. Paul tells us in Romans that we do know the existence of God, and it's known by reason. So we can reason to these things. So it's no problem if, here in Canada, it's just like northeastern United States, pumpkins are everywhere. It's just literally a native crop anyway. It's all the First Nations, indigenous people, were eating them all the time. It's just been around. They're just everywhere. They grow so easily. So of course there's going to be some aspect of around the time of harvest, the pumpkins are going to be ready. It's going to become part of our lives. There's nothing wrong. Don't make a pumpkin with a candle. Don't make a jack-o'-lantern with some crazy demon on the picture. But it doesn't, I think we did the Sacred Heart last year. You can also just do a smiley face. There's nothing wrong with, you can do whatever you want as long as you're just not doing something insane. Also, this is kind of a little tangent, but, because the liturgy in the church has been so dismantled, people have lost the sense of the liturgical way of life. And there is a resurgence of it, Liturgy of the Home. Shout out to Liturgy of the Home, Jeremiah, etc., for the work they've done. There's Living the Liturgical Year. Even in the Novus Ordo, a lot of people are trying to figure this out and recapture it anyway because they know it's been lost. So this is, this time of year is a part of the liturgical calendar. So having sort of a very special, unique way where your family, your children, your neighbors, your friends, they know that around this time of year, so-and-so's house smells like pumpkin pie. So-and-so's house smells like apple cider. That's actually super powerful. One of the things that keeps people coming back to the church is they just remember Christmas. And what would Christmas be without the smell of cookies or the sight of the tree, or if you live in a place with snow? What would it be with those things? They pull on your heartstrings. We are corporeal beings. We are physical and we are metaphysical. We're spirit and we're body. So having these things that we can touch and taste and smell and feel, this is liturgical, and it should be recaptured within the liturgies. But if it can't be, at least it can be in your home. So I think that's great advice. Make this time of year as special and meaningful. If you don't want to trick or treat, don't trick or treat. I'm not going to make you do anything. I'm not going to say yes or one way or the other. But don't give up the holiday because a bunch of idiots are doing stupid things. What a waste of a Catholic tradition. So that's the end of my rant. Before we go here, why don't you tell us, Charles, what you're working on and where we can find your stuff?
Yeah, so all my books are available directly from me at slayingdragonspress.com. Most of them are on Amazon, and Slaying Dragons and The Rise of the Occult are pretty much available everywhere. I'm also working on the continuation of The Rise of the Occult. It's going to be called The Occult Among Us. It's almost done. It's not as long as The Rise of the Occult. It's closer to Slaying Dragons size, about 200 pages, but more things that we just need to know about, like the history of these occultic movements, where they're popping up with much more detail, and then sadly, more things about what's going on in the church because the occult has infiltrated there. And then I'm working on more research for more books after that. But slayingdragonspress.com is my website. So sign up, get books there, and then your prayers for my apostolate are very much appreciated because this is it's a strange work, but it's very enjoyable.
Excellent. Well, Charles is kind of like the exterminator, everyone needs him, but they don't want to do the same work as him, but you've got to support him, make sure you keep doing it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a great conversation. As we record this, it's October 18th. They should be out in the next 2 or 3 days. So you got about a week until maybe 10 days or so till Halloween. find a way to have a blast. Make it something for your kids to remember, and go to a cemetery, pray your rosary, have some beautiful candles, have some sort of festivities, and really make this a time to remember, because it is a Catholic feast day. And to heck or to hell with all those evil spirits who have co-opted it for their working. So, ladies and gentlemen, always let me know what you think in the comments. This has been the Kennedy Report. Until next time, God bless. Thanks, Charles.